Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mediation, the New Possibilities Hour. Today is January 7th, 2021, our first program of the year 2021. And we are so delighted to welcome Professor Peter Robinson, recently retired as director of the Strauss Institute of Dispute Resolution at the Pepperdine University Caruso School of Law. This program is part of the Will Work for Food project. We're here to raise money for food banks to fight food insecurity. And we started at the beginning of the lockdown. Natalie Armstrong-Motan started this from her lockdown situation in France. And shortly afterward, invited me to join the team. And we're so happy that this year, Jean Lawler of Lawler ADR, also based here in Los Angeles, California, has also joined our planning committee, and very happy to have Jean as part of the Merry Band. Natalie, how did we end up last year? Please give us a report on the fundraising for food banks all around the world. It's so wonderful that so many members of the community who watch these webinars have contributed. Please.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks so much. And listen, Happy New Year, everyone. I know last year was a bit rough, but we're still working for good and happy ends. I want to very happily report to you that we are almost at $65,000 in donations. We received a handful of really generous, lovely holiday gifts from the resolution industry. So thank you to all of those people.
That is just fantastic. And Peter, we always give every speaker an opportunity to designate one or more food banks that are important to them, and Natalie will post the information in the chat. And if you could please tell us where you would like people who are in a position to contribute, where you would most appreciate contributions, that would be great.
And I want you to know that I give to the Union Rescue Mission, and they ask no questions. They feed the people on Skid Row, and they also provide housing. They do a great work, but it is a religious organization. If you're more comfortable with the non-sectarian organization, the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is another worthy program that does good work. So those would be two that I'll throw out for your consideration.
Fantastic. And we'll post the information in the chat. And for those who are in a position where they are able to contribute, we appreciate contributions of any amount very much. If you please let Natalie know, if you're comfortable letting Natalie know, we can add that to our running total. So, Peter, you are so well known to everybody in the field of mediation from your work at Pepperdine and around the world in religious contexts, secular contexts, every imaginable context of mediation. You're truly one of the pioneers and one of the true superheroes of the mediation field. I could go on and on about you, our personal friendship and everything else for a very long time. People, though, did not come here to hear about that. They came here to hear your pearls of wisdom, apology, and forgiveness in mediation. With that, my friend, the floor is yours.
Well, first, I do want to thank Jeff. Jeff has been such a good friend for decades. In fact, I couldn't find the magazine, but I'll let you know, I think it was about 30 years ago when Jeff and I both were just, pups. He made arrangements with, I think, the Daily Journal to create a cover sheet that's the Fab Four. And we had on our black turtlenecs, and it was Jeff and me, and I think Denise Madigan and Jeff Krivis, if I remember right.
That's right.
And if you ever want to laugh, we should try and go back and find that, and you'll get a kick. But let's get down to business. Time is short, and I had technical issues getting started, so now time's even shorter. I always talk fast. I want you to know, looking at my screen, I see many people who I do know and appreciate, and it's great to see you and to spend an hour together this morning thinking and hopefully growing as we think about our opportunities as mediators. Well, you know, after teaching at Pepperdine for about 20 years, it bothered me that we hadn't touched the soul of dispute resolution, that we taught psychology of conflict, we taught cross-culture, we taught mediation, advanced mediation, we did all these things, but I still felt like we'd missed the heart. And my journey trying to get to the heart led me into exploration of apology and forgiveness in the context of mediation. I spent a number of years just doing reading and putting together thoughts of the folks that I had studied. So let me share what I can with you. I have a whole semester-long class on apology, forgiveness, and reconciliation at Pepperdine. So I got an hour now. So I do want to let you know that if you live in the United States and you are a teacher, I will mail you a copy of all my class materials free. My mission in life now is to get other people to hopefully teach similar classes. If you're out of the country, I'm sorry, I've had many friends who are out of the country. The out-of-country mailing cost, it's cheaper for you just to go buy it on Amazon. It's apology, forgiveness, and reconciliation. But if you're in the United States, I can mail for a book rate for $3, and I'll mail you a copy. You can look at it and see if you want to teach something like this at your school. So teacher at any level. Okay, let's get down into it and find out what we're talking about here. So the challenge at hand is to look at apology. Whoops. Okay. And forgiveness. And for those of you who have been in my live classes, you know that I can't talk without some writing behind me. So I'm sorry that this is low tech. I'm standing in front of my closet, and I got these things taped on my closet. So welcome to the new world. Okay, as we stand here and think about apology, we're talking about healing. How do we help people heal? We can resolve a conflict, but we got individuals there who are wounded. And the path to recovery sometimes is helped for a victim. The victim, I think, heals sometimes when he gets an acknowledgement. And of course, how often do lawsuits get settled without any acknowledgement of wrongdoing and a non-disclosure agreement? The fact is that the person gets their compensation, but the emotional side of the situation is often they're frustrated. They never even said they're sorry. So now we have a situation to where maybe the victim is yearning for some recognition, some apology as part of this conversation. And also, as we think about it, maybe the defendant, recognizes, we know we screwed up. And they want to apologize. So as we think about looking at the apology transaction from a mediator perspective, possibly you might have a plaintiff who is saying, I just wish that they would admit that what they did was wrong. What they did to me was wrong. Or you might have a defendant, but notice with you, as you begin to, if you're courageous enough to explore that and to go into the other room and tell the defendant what you know, he would like for you to acknowledge that how you guys treated him wasn't right, and find out their reaction. And of course, most of you are going to say, well, most of the time they're going to disagree and say, well, we don't believe that. We'll get to that in a minute. But for right now, you have one side who's maybe saying that we can't even start this conversation unless there's an apology. So, all right, there's one. But I want you to know that it's also healing for the defendant. Because if a defendant does, in fact, know or believe that he or she has done wrong, that they have guilt, and unresolved guilt is a bad thing. And the whole idea of the apology being for the benefit of the perpetrator, that the person who has done wrong actually is in a better psychological place if he or she is honest with him or herself, and if you will, confesses, and that they are now on a path towards being more healthy. So as we look at it, maybe the plaintiff is the one who brings up the apology, maybe it's the defendant. And as you are hopefully more sensitive about this, you got your antenna out and you're looking for signals about that. But sometimes the defendant wants to apologize, but the plaintiff is reluctant. You know, it's kind of, yeah, sure, he wants to apologize. He's just trying to soften me up so that I won't be so mad and won't want so much money. You know what? If he wants to apologize, you know, show me the money first, and then we'll have the conversation. Let's see if he's going to make me a reasonable offer. So in any event, the apology impasse could happen. It could be initiated by either side, and the other side could be reluctant either way. So as we begin to say, all right, so now let's understand apology. I propose to you two elements. And the two elements that I've thought about in my journeys here is that, you know, does the perpetrator or the accused, the alleged perpetrator, believe, or are they willing to admit that their behavior has hurt another person, that there's some injury that was perpetrated? I was texting while driving. You know what? I ran into someone, they now have bodily injury. Am I willing to admit that my behavior hurt another person? Okay, fair enough. And the second piece of it is, am I willing to say that my behavior was wrong? That for me to text while I was driving, it's illegal, it's not right. I didn't live the golden rule. I wouldn't want to be treated that way. So those are the two, for me, factors that help us construct what is an apology. And if both of those are present in large measure, we find ourselves out here on the chart, which is a remorse apology. I'll forewarn you, we're going to look at other kinds of apologies because sometimes both those factors aren't present. So now we're looking at a remorse apology. I admit that I lost my temper and I spoke harshly, and you know what, that was a failing on my part. I should have had more composure. I should have had more professionals. I should have had more ability to deal with the situation without becoming short. So now here we are looking at these two elements, and we have the remorse apology. So let's look at what does a appropriate, good remorse apology look like, because sometimes we mess that up. You might have people who want to apologize, but in fact, frankly, once you know, as you now move forward, if you read the paper and just listen to situations, I think you'll enjoy the fact of how people mess this up when they think they're trying to apologize. So as we step back and look at how to apologize, what are the steps, the elements of an apology? Well, the first one is an acknowledgement. To acknowledge that, to acknowledge what happened. This is the basis of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, right? Just tell me the truth. You are saying, you know what, I want to let you know, I lost my temper. I treated you, and there you are, naming what you did. Notice with me, there are a number of ways that people mess this up, because it cannot be vague. You can't say sorry for that thing. You have to say, you know what, I know that I'm 15 minutes late to our lunch appointment. I think I was rude to dishonor your time for 15, and for you to name the offense and to acknowledge it and to do it with specificity, not with generalizations, okay? By the way, we can't minimize it. Some people say, well, it's really not that big of a deal, but I'm sorry. Okay, well, that's doublespeak, right? I mean, am I going to admit that I've done something I shouldn't have done? In fact, frankly, it's very interesting. If you maximize it beyond reason, it might cause the other person to relax and to feel like, okay, he or she understands, you know, what it felt like to work for a company for 30 years and then to be escorted off by security like I'm some kind of thief. I can't believe they did that to me. How humiliating. And now for the company to go to that meeting and say, you know, we want you to know that in hindsight, you know, it was outrageous what we did to send security to escort you off the facilities. I mean, we gave you signing authority for thousands, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, and now we act like you're going to steal the stapler. You know what? As we think about that, and as we put ourselves into your shoes, we realize that was so wrong of us. And for the apologizer to magnify the offense as compared. Now again, we try to minimize it because to name what we did that was wrong is hard on our ego. It's hard on our pride. We don't want to have to fall on the sword and say, I screwed up. So if we do it, sometimes we try to say, I screwed up, but only a little bit. So don't do that. Say, I screwed up big time. It will help the other person have more satisfaction, right? Here's another one. Not conditional. How often have you ever heard someone say, if that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry? I want to let you know that you know what, that is as much an indictment of the other person as it is accepting your fallibility. Because the indictment is, if that hurts your feelings, the insinuation is, well, maybe you're thin-skinned. Maybe it's your fault that we're having this whole problem because you're so sensitive. But you know what? I'll be the bigger person and I'll apologize. Apology is supposed to be an act of humility. That I humble myself and say, you know what, I realize that I messed up. And humility is hard because it empowers the other person. The person who's apologizing is giving if here we are, if I apologize, I lower myself and I elevate you because I'm giving you the power to decide whether to accept the apology or not. And that's a hard thing. So here we are. We're not going to condition enough. I see enough people who are familiar with Pepperdine. I want you to know that when Stephanie Blondell first started working at Pepperdine, I was the one who hired her. I was her first supervisor, right? And she worked for Pepperdine for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, she came into my office it was like 5:15 at night. We're just getting ready to leave. We were all tired. And she says, Peter, I want you to know I've been here 6 months and I haven't gotten any feedback. Are you happy with what I'm doing? Well, I realized, oh my gosh, this is terrible leadership. I've really dropped the ball here. So so right then and there, I said, well, time out. Stephanie, I want to let you know, you're doing a great job. You know, I love what you're doing with the students in the clinic. I hear nothing but good things, and the students are just so happy. And by the way, I love what you're doing with your psychology of conflict class. I hear great things about that. And I love what you're doing when you're working. And I mentioned 3 or 4 specific things that I loved what she was doing, right? And then I started down a new sentence. I said, and I love, and I couldn't think of any other specific thing to fill in the blank. So because of a lack of words, I said, I love you. Now again, you know, we ended that conversation. I'm driving through Malibu Canyon back to the San Fernando Valley. And as I'm driving, I'm thinking, I love you. That didn't come out right. Boy, the folks down in HR would just love to hear, love to hear your performance evaluation methodology, Peter. And I thought about, we've only known each other 6 months. And I want you to know that night, I thought it through. The next morning I came back, and when I found her again, I said, hey, last night, we had that conversation. I don't know if you noticed, and I don't know if it made you uncomfortable, but I want to let you know, I noticed, and it made me uncomfortable. It doesn't matter if you felt it or not. At the end of that, I said, I love you. And I want you to know that that's not appropriate in the workplace. And so here's that idea to where it doesn't matter if you're offended or not. The actor, him or herself, is going to say that by my standards, I'm going to take responsibility for something that didn't come out right. Okay, but the last one we have to watch here is to watch for the passive voice. The third person, right? Instead of I made a mistake, people want to say mistakes were made, right? As if somehow the universe came together to create this moment where I do a faux pas. The universe didn't come together. I just dropped the ball. So we have a situation there of wanting to speak in the passive voice, the third person voice, as compared to the first person voice that said, yesterday, this is what I did. I have agency. I have autonomy. I'm the one who did this, and I'm the one who needs to take responsibility for it falling flat. It didn't go well. By the way, when I talked to Stephanie about that performance evaluation, she started laughing and she said, Peter, I did notice. It didn't make me uncomfortable because I just know you. And anyway, but the fact is that she had noticed, and she thought, that's a little weird. Okay, so here we go. So, but notice this is just the first step of an apology, right? Acknowledging what we did. Okay, the next step is to express remorse, to self-condemn what you did. I want you to know, I did this. Yeah, I want you to know, I have a watch. I can keep time. I know I'm 15 minutes late to lunch. So there now I've named, the offense, right? And then for you to say, I want you to know, I feel terrible. I feel like I've been disrespectful I've dishonored you. I've disrespected your time. I hate whenever I let myself get overcommitted and stretched too thin. And the fact is that I hate when I treat people this way, and I treated you this way. So notice with me, for you to magnify that this is wrong. Part of the dynamic between some people, I don't know, you may not have this. I'll let you know I have this. Is that when I feel someone has taken advantage of me or treated me in some way that is not appropriate, there's a part of me that says, you know what? Maybe I should teach him a lesson. Maybe I should do something to get back at him so that he knows that he shouldn't treat me this way. And notice with me, I want to punish him because I feel like he punished me. I want to punish him for his bad behavior. If the person who does the bad behavior has punished him or herself, if they come to me and say, yesterday I did such and such, I want you to know, I went home and I'm so mad at myself. I didn't eat dinner. I slept restlessly. I just couldn't believe that I treated you that way, right? If they are punishing themselves, that voice in my head that says, you know what, they treated you badly, you should punish them, right? It goes away because they're punishing themselves. So here's this moment. I not only need to name what I did, but I also need to let them know that does, I hate when I do that. I condemn it, and I have remorse, right? Now the next step is offer an explanation. This is dangerous because it cannot become an excuse. So therefore, if you get into this territory of an explanation, you might want to make sure, let's be clear, this is not an excuse. What I did is unexcusable. I do want to let you know the reason I acted that way is because my wife is in the hospital and I haven't slept for 36 hours and my mind and my heart is elsewhere, and that's why I lost my temper and yelled at you. And there you are, explaining but not justifying. Make sure that you always circle back and say, this behavior is not appropriate. I dropped the ball. One of the things that might be helpful for you to know is the reason I acted out of character is because, and then you have whatever the other things going on in your life. And then the last stage of a good apology is reparations. That if in fact you're going to admit that you did something that injured another person and that you believe that you're willing to condemn that behavior, that was wrong, well then take responsibility. Jonathan Cohen was one of the folks who advising clients to apologize, I think is the name of his law review article. He's a professor at University of Florida. Great article. And in there he says that talk is cheap. If you are going to apologize and then not offer reparations, it's hollow. So for you to, now sometimes reparations can be measured and monetary. You damaged my car, you'll pay for the repairs. Okay, there you go. You made it right. But sometimes the injury is not measurable. Sometimes I humiliated a person in my office at a staff meeting, right? Okay, so what are the reparations? I want you to know that I'm going to send around an email to everyone in the office and say, yesterday I humiliated so-and-so at the staff meeting. I want you to know I've apologized to them privately, but it's important for all of you to know that this person is a really valuable member of our team, has made so many positive contributions, and my sarcastic put down was very inappropriate. It's not the environment that I want to have in our office, and I want to make sure everyone knows that that's not who I want to be. And because of that, I am buying lunch today for everyone in the office who can get away at noon. And by the way, when I say I'm buying lunch, this won't be reimbursed by Pepperdine. I'm buying lunch, so everyone knows that. Okay, Peter's putting some skin in the game. So this idea of reparations being part of the apology. So as we stand back and look at this, now we have the roadmap for a thorough, comprehensive apology. But what if the defendant doesn't believe they did anything wrong? Which is, I'm guessing, what you're going to run into most often as a mediator. someone makes an accusation and says, you guys discriminated, and they're going to have some accusation, somehow you treated me wrong. And if the other side agrees, they don't need a mediator. So I think conflict is when someone makes an accusation and the other side says, you know what, I disagree. And it's interesting to now go back and thin slice, what do they disagree about? Do they disagree about having committed the injury, or do they disagree about it being wrong? I'll let you know that if they're both present, we have the remorse apology, but the methodology that we have here allows us to create another kind of apology that I think is important to recognize here. And to look at this place here on the chart, to where someone says, I know that I'm making choices that are going to leave you worse off. But I don't think it's wrong for me to make this choice. I want you to know I've mediated about 70 divorces. In almost every case, the person who's deciding to end the marriage says, you know what, I believe that this is the right thing to do. Our marriage is not healthy. It's toxic. I don't affirm and edify you, and you don't affirm and edify me. We're tearing each other down. And while it'll be painful to go through the transition, I think that what I'm doing is actually better for you, better for me, better for the kids. I know it's right for me. I think it's better for everyone else. So notice with me, I may not be willing to say that what I'm doing is wrong, but am I at least willing to say, I know what I'm doing is going to leave you worse off than if we just continue status quo. The other place where I've recently experienced this is in a partnership dissolution. And a situation where I don't have my phone turned off. So a partnership dissolution, you got 3 partners, and the partnership evolves in such a way to where the contributions of one of the partners is no longer significant. The thing that he does to make the enterprise prosper, they can hire someone for $100,000 a year and cover that gap, compared to paying him 1/3 of the profits, which for that partnership was about $1 million a year. And the 2 other partners says, you know what, we want this guy out. And as I was mediating, you know, he's saying, you can't end this. This is like a marriage. And they go, actually, we can end this. It's a business partnership is not like a marriage to us. So they were willing to admit that what we're doing is going to leave you worse off. But we're not willing to say that what we did is wrong. So now notice with me, there's still, I think, a type of apology. It's not the remorse apology that we've just looked at. It's a regret apology. And for us to understand as mediators that we can help people, as mediators all the time, we help people communicate. And for us to dive into apology so that we can thin slice it and help people communicate what they believe and how they perceive things, and for them to say, yeah, you know what, if I step back and look at it, I'm willing to admit that my choice is going to leave the other person worse off. But I think that it's the right thing to do. Or at least it certainly is not the wrong thing to do. I'm not willing to say it's wrong for me to do this. And now for you to help them to at least, now notice if we're looking at the regret apology, what do we have here? Can we still give an acknowledgement? Can we still help people articulate, I know that the choice that I'm making is going to leave you worse off. And I take no joy in that. I like you. You know, you're not a bad person. And I know that I'm making a decision here as far as what's best for my life, and what's best for my life is to not go forward the way we've been going forward in the past, right? But I know that what I'm doing here leaves you worse off. There's a level of acknowledgement there that I think that a person who is hurt by the decision at least says, well, you know, at least I got that. And then even for the person to say, I'm not willing to express remorse. I'm not willing to say that it's wrong for me to do this, and I can't sleep at night. And my conscience is instead for the person to, if we're helping people to communicate, to say, I want you to know, Mike, I've really wrestled with this, and my conscience is clear. I think that I have moral and legal standing to make the decision I'm making, but I want you to know I do have regret. I take no joy in making a decision that leaves you worse off. You've been a friend, you've been a partner. I mean, I want you to know that that I do regret that the way things have evolved here is that I'm better off out of this dynamic, this relationship, than I am being in it. So here we are, helping people articulate a different kind of apology. I can still acknowledge, but instead of remorse, now I do regret. In some situations, you know, we might promise forbearance. When I was in college, I dated a woman for a few years. In her family of origin, the word stupid had a special meaning. It was incredibly offensive to call somebody stupid. Now, in my family of origin, that wasn't the way it was. We called each other stupid all the time. But because I cared for this person, you know, I learned that, okay, I shouldn't use that word around her or her family. Because it has a different meaning in their environment, and I didn't. I knew that was not that was not being respectful of her and her family. So the whole idea that, you know, I will maybe offer forbearance going forward, reparations, you know. If I'm going to make this decision, I want to be fair about it, and if this is a partnership, you know, we should get some appropriate you know, evaluation, and that you get bought out at a reasonable price. I'm not trying to hurt you. I want to be fair. So here we are. We're still walking our way through, right? But I want to let you know that here's the more controversial, right? So the regret apology. What about the situation where the person who's accused says, I don't think my decision or my behavior is hurting anybody, and I don't think it's wrong. What if you're down here on the chart? Can you see it? Okay, down here on the chart, where the accused, you know, totally says, I don't think, yeah, I think that the other person's being overly sensitive. I think that, and here they want to take a place in that place. This is called a social harmony apology, and we've all given those often. Right? You are with a good friend, you don't get to spend that much time with them. Dinner's just getting started, and don't you know, you make what you think is a clever comment on about our political situation. And little did you know that the other person has strong feelings about this and takes great offense. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, you know, by the way, I have people in my family on both sides who take strong offense. So the fact is, you've poked the bear, and now as you're having this dinner, yeah, and you realize that, okay, this night is going to be miserable unless I retract and apologize for my comment, because and frankly, the social harmony apology, you don't think what you did was inappropriate, and certainly it wasn't wrong, and you're surprised that it hurt them, and you think, frankly, that they are too thin-skinned. That is your honest assessment. But the fact is, the social harmony apology says, I care more about this relationship than I do about being right. Wow. I want you to know, most of my students at Pepperdine come from the United States, and we have a very individualistic culture. And in our culture, I hear many people say, I'm not going to apologize unless I think I did something wrong. But I want you to know that there's another whole way to look at this through a collectivist culture. And in the collectivist culture, the idea that what's important is the well-being of the community, of the family, of the team. It's not I don't look at this through an individual lens. I look at this through a lens of how do I help my family be okay? And now I know that you know, an elder, maybe my grandfather, you know, I hurt his feelings, and frankly, to put the world right, I will humble myself and give an apology, even though I don't think I did anything to injure him and did anything wrong. And now you have the idea that the relationship is more important than being right. So the social harmony apology might also be a situation where a mediator's in a situation, and there he is, and he's talking with someone. He says, I don't think I should have to apologize. Well, okay. I do want to let you know that if you allow this feud to continue, there's going to be collateral damage. That other people, you cannot have this war with this other person in isolation, and you have mutual friends, maybe mutual relatives, and they're going to have to pick a side. It all gets very, very ugly. And you might want to think about a utilitarian approach to where you give an apology that says, you know what, I'm sorry, because I know that if I don't apologize, that this is going to continue to escalate and go nuts, and I don't want that for my community. So I will apologize. Now you have the giant question as a mediator, as you're facilitating apology. You have a giant question about how transparent to be. Are you going to actually give a social harmony apology and tell the person, I want to let you know, I know I hurt your feelings by my political joke. I know I offended you because you have strong feelings about this. Truth be told, I think that you are kind of have too much passion about your political beliefs. That's the truth. But I know I offended you, and therefore I'm going to apologize so that we can get over this rough spot and still have a nice evening together, because I love spending time with you. You are a good friend. We've got lots of, I want to catch up, and I care for you. And I don't want this conversation to get hijacked by the political going ons. So some people will be transparent. The more transparent you are about a social harmony apology, the less likely it is to be successful as far as putting out the fire. Sometimes we embrace intentional ambiguity, and we say we're sorry. And frankly, as a mediator, this raises some real ethical issues to me. How do I feel about facilitating miscommunication? Because the truth is that one side's giving a social harmony apology, and the other side is taking it as a remorse apology. And I believe generally that we should help people communicate authentically. So therefore, if in fact I'm watching this social harmony apology being received as a remorse apology, I would ask the person who's given the social harmony apology for permission. I want to make sure that they understand that this is not a remorse apology. I don't want you guys to resolve this on a foundation of sand. I'd rather that they know who you really are, and that you don't believe that you did anything wrong, but you're apologizing because of the need to get along, just so that we can all get along and get over this. Especially, and by the way, especially when the plaintiff says, we can't even have a conversation unless they apologize. And you go in the other room, and the other side says, listen, I don't have any guilt. I don't think I did anything wrong. I'm not even sure we did anything, that hurt the other person, injured the other person, right? And so I want you to know, they're not willing to have the conversation unless it starts with an apology. And it says, okay, fine, go give them an apology, right? And then say, okay, under these circumstances, it sounds to me like this is a coerced apology that is a social harmony apology. And the kind of, do I have your permission to make sure that they know that? And then to walk back into the plaintiff's room and say, you've made a condition preceding that he apologized. He is now apologizing. But I want to let you know this is under coercion. I don't want you to have any false impressions that he actually thinks he injured you and that it was wrong for him to do so. And there you are, but he's the transparency. There is another approach to apology, which is the externally motivated apology, to where the graph, it doesn't even fit on the graph, because not only is there no injury and there's no sense of doing anything wrong, but frankly, the only reason the person's apologizing is to avoid punishment and consequences. So the whole idea again, there might be times where someone says, why should I apologize? Well, let's think about that. Apologizing tends to reduce the anger in the other room. Apologizing tends to calm the waters and let us have a more rational conversation. Apologize, and you're frankly articulating a whole bunch of reasons that have nothing to do with, do you think you did anything wrong? Do you think that you hurt them? You know what? You said that you don't have those feelings, but there still might be reasons that that it's in your best interest to apologize. And in the literature, it's referred to as the externally motivated apology. Again, transparency is a big question. So there is kind of like, for mediators to understand, or helping people communicate, am I able to help them to thin slice and help them communicate about apology? I'm ready to move that to the side. I got 15 minutes to tackle, you know, an equally monstrous topic of forgiveness. Unless any of you say, Peter, do me a favor, email me if you have a question and you want to deal with it. I'm very easy to find, peter.robinson@pepperdine.edu. Okay, let's turn the page. When we think about forgiveness, I want to let you know, I started thinking that forgiveness is what plaintiffs need to deal with. They're the ones who have been hurt, and now they're going to get compensation. But how often have we heard people say, well, you know what, I got the money's fine, but you know what, it doesn't make everything okay. You're right, it doesn't make everything okay. You not only suffered a financial or a legal or a business injury, you also suffered an emotional injury. I've had people whose houses have been broken into and burglarized, and they say the loss of a sense of security. Not only do they take my TV, but the loss of a sense that I'm safe within my castle. That's what they really took from me. And so we're affected emotionally by our conflicts. And as we think about forgiveness, sometimes we might be helping a plaintiff who feels like they've been wronged to heal, recover on the emotional side from the experience, right? But I want you to know, I've had many, I say students, but they're practicing lawyers, they're general counsel of the companies. They say, Peter, you don't understand. Defendants need to forgive too, because often, most of the time, the defendants feel wrongfully accused. You know, and now suddenly they're the victim because you're suing me for sexual harassment, and this has nothing to do with sexual harassment. And the defendant also feels like they have been wounded because they've been accused of bad behavior. What are the metrics for forgiveness? How do we measure what is forgiveness, right? And again, this is just me trying to figure it out, but I've come up with 3 things. One of them is animus. A reduction in animus. You know what? Yesterday, I hated you and prayed that you would burn in hell. All right. Today, you know what? It's okay with me if you just end up in purgatory for a season. Now again, I've moved I used to wish you harm. I wish you less harm. And maybe eventually I get to the place where I wish you well. So how much animus do I have towards the other person? Right? One measure is animus. The other measure is reparations. If I lend you $500 and then I tell you I forgive you, does that, and excuse me, and you haven't paid me when you said you'd pay me, if I tell you I forgive you, does that mean that I release you of the obligation of repaying me $500? Is it possible to construct a type of forgiveness that says, I forgive you for not paying me when you said you would? Now, when will you pay me? And to still, you know, say, I still want justice. I still want fairness between us. But I'm not. I don't hate you. I have compassion for you, but I also still expect, you know, reparations. Okay. Well, the third measure is the future relationship. I know people who say, I forgive them, but I never want to see them again. And is it possible to, and by the way, and there are times to where it is healthy to say it's not good for us to be in proximity. You know, we are not good for each other. It's we tear each other down. It's just it's negative, and therefore I want you to know I have no hard feelings against you. I've decided to wish you well, and you know what? We've made our financial resolution. That's fine, but you know, I'm going to keep my distance. I might keep my distance physically and not. Well, the battered spouse is the classic example, right? Should they go back to that relationship? And I think almost all of us would say, no, this is an abusive relationship. Don't go back. This is not wise to go back. So the fact is, I think you can have a kind of forgiveness. So each of these might be different in different situations. And that's why the word forgiveness is so explosive. If you ask someone, have you thought about forgiving them? They may think that you mean, oh, you want me to go back and be vulnerable? Do you know what? This person is a monster. They take advantage of people. I should not be vulnerable to him or her. They stole money from our company. Should I bring them back and give them the job back and put them in a position of to where they can do it again? And all of these ideas of what might forgiveness mean? And for us as mediators to help people deconstruct complicated concepts and be able to articulate and communicate about, okay, you know, what's an appropriate kind of forgiveness in this situation. So there is one variable that I think we as mediators can help people unpackage for forgiveness. But the question is that we have people who are hurting. And I think that apology is helpful for healing. I think forgiveness is all about healing. And in fact, there are 3 paths to forgiveness. I want you to know the first 2 or 3 times I taught the class, I did not realize this. I would read books on forgiveness, and many authors just kind of have their paradigm for forgiveness, and they don't acknowledge any other paradigm, and I was not able to. I don't know, probably after a couple of years, I finally read a book that helped me understand it, and the book said, realize that there's 3 different models, and suddenly I can go back and look at different authors and realize that they're operating from one or the other model, right? So one of the models is called therapeutic forgiveness. Fred Luskin is a psychologist he's a professor at Stanford. He's the director of their forgiveness project. And he writes many books, Forgive for Good. But his whole approach to forgiveness is that this is about the victim's mental health. We think of forgiveness as a gift to the perp. Right? I'm going to forgive you. And it's kind of like, wow, what a nice thing for him to do to the other person. To forgive is actually about the victim saying, I don't want to be prisoner to what happened on June 3rd, 1977. Right? Someone has this horrific event in their life, and it defines them. And when do they how do they give themselves permission to recover and move on? So the idea that I can't change my past, but I can change my future. And I can change my future by forgiving for my own well-being. This is only about me not renting space in my head is one of the phrases. And another picture he uses is controlling the remote control of your mind. That you get to decide what you think about. And what you think about will determine how you feel. So he talks about taking control of your emotions by controlling what you allow yourself to think about. And if you dwell on some injury that someone did to you, you will stay in a broken, hurt place. But if you are willing to exercise discipline and say, I'm not going to, you know what, I should think about that, 15 minutes a day, and then I'm going to stop. And he talks about putting yourself in places to where you are forced to think about other things. He's at Stanford. He says he drives down to Big Sur and looks at the majesty of nature, and suddenly, he's in a different place. His mind's in a different place. His feelings are in a different place. Part of this is to create a hero story. The victim story is all about what you suffered and what wrong was done to you. The hero story is all about how you overcame that. And when you tell your story, how much time, what percentage of time are you talking about how the other person is such a bad person, you know, and what they did to you, and what percentage of time are you talking about how you have overcome that setback in your life? And again, from a mental health psychological perspective, Luskin encourages us to embrace forgiveness for our own well-being, to get to a better place. Now, there's a whole bunch of other authors who write, and they write about forgiveness from a relational perspective, to restore healthy relationships, right? So the fact is, in their model, forgiveness and reconciliation are the same. That it's about how do we put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and there we are, restoring the relationship. In this model, the authors talk about you cannot have a one-way forgiveness. It can't be I forgive you. It can't be one-up forgiveness. And the best illustration is the marriage where the husband was unfaithful, but he wants to stay married to his wife. And he asks the wife to forgive him. And she says, absolutely not, right? And he thinks that means that they're going to have to end their marriage, until she explains, if I forgive you, then I will always be the saint and you will be the scoundrel. You will be the one who screwed up. And you know what? You will owe me for my forgiveness. I will have, if I forgive you, I'm one up, you're one down, and for the rest of our marriage, anytime you really get me mad, I'll say, well, just don't forget about the affair. And suddenly, you know what? I've put you back in your place. And she goes, I don't want a marriage like that. If we're going to keep our marriage, I want to go back to a mutually respectful. So now suddenly, this approach to forgiveness says that we need to tell a more complicated story. Yes, you were the one who was unfaithful, right? But we both made a lot of decisions over a lot of years to where we got to a place to where that happened. And we need to go look back. I do need to forgive you, but I also need to forgive myself for some of the decisions I made. And guess what? You need to forgive me for some of the decisions I made, and you need to forgive yourself too. So here we have this idea of a more complicated story. As compared to the soundbite. The last model of forgiveness, there are many people who write, I won't worry about that. The last model of forgiveness is redemptive forgiveness. And this is a forgiveness that comes from living your value system. And many people have a value system that says, you know what? I choose to be a person who doesn't hold grudges. I choose, and you have constructed. Now, it might be because of your religious beliefs. Many of the world religions challenge us to be forgiving people. And in fact, many of them say that, the Creator will forgive us in the same way we forgive others. So I'll just let you know that I'm a religious person, and there are many times where I've prayed, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And then I've put a little asterisk there and say, hey, you know what? Right now, I know there's someone I need to forgive that I haven't forgiven yet. So if I die tonight, I need more forgiveness than I'm giving. So I'm not really meaning, what I just prayed. So here we are in this idea of either drawing on maybe our religious beliefs, but I have many students say, Robinson, I'm not a religious person. I don't have any sacred texts, but I still have a system of ethics to where I believe that I'm better off by forgiving. And that's who I am. And now the whole idea of living your belief system, and that will drive many people to forgiveness. Now here are 3 different languages, depending as a mediator who you're talking to, and what they might be responding to. But I hope that again we would be sensitive. The forgiveness word is so mysterious that it's almost, to me, better to not use it. Instead, to talk about the elements and to say, do you want to be angry? Now make sure you hear this, okay? That all the books on forgiveness says that anger is appropriate and healthy. If you have suffered some injustice, you should be angry. If you're not angry, you lack self-respect. So you should be angry, but it doesn't age well. And frankly, there are benefits to being angry, and there's benefits to being a victim. That you get sympathy from others, you have the moral high ground. All of that is a great, oh my gosh, my spouse left me, and all of your friends will come around and say, oh, you poor guy, and you get all this love, right? Except if you stay in the place of being a victim, eventually your friends will not want to spend time with you. You're not enjoyable. You are an energy drag. You suck life out of people because you need to be fed. And there you are. So to acknowledge that anger is legitimate and appropriate. And for us as mediators, and this might be kind of the tail end of the mediation to where people have put together some deal, but they're still hurting. And for you to acknowledge, say, I want you to know that, that I sense that you're still, that this is still painful in your heart. Yes, it is still painful in my heart. We're settling the legal stuff, and that's helpful. But I'm still hurt. I'm still angry. And for you to accept, I want you to know that that's normal. After what you've been through, you probably should be angry. But I hope that you might start a process. And here you are encouraging people to think about, so what's your plan to, at some point, and by the way, I don't know the timing on this. For some people, it might be a week. Other people might be a month. Other people might be a year. But I hope that you're on some kind of a path to where, at some point, you wake up in the morning and this doesn't define you, doesn't control you, and that you're at a place to where you've moved on with your life and you're doing what makes you happy and what makes those around you happy, and that you're a person who is building love and kindness in the world as compared to forever saying, you can't believe what happened to me, this person did this, and I just couldn't get over it. It's kind of like, well, you haven't gotten over it. It's clear about that because that happened 20 years ago. So there we are. As far as I think for us as mediators, when it comes to forgiveness, probably needing to respect the fact that for most people, it's a process kind of like grieving. And we all know that grief has a journey and different stages and what have you. I think forgiveness for most people does also. In fact, it might be very similar path because I think that we have to grieve the death of what we thought we had. I thought I had a business partner that I could trust and would carry his or her weight, right? And then I found out that that's not what I had, and now I realize that that I was living, in a fantasy world, and that really devastated me, right? Okay, you're right. You got sucker punched. That's hard to recover from. But the question is, how long am I going to live there? And when will I say, yeah, you know what? I've suffered a few bad things in my life, and for us as mediators, for us to say, I want you to know, you're not the only person that I've ever met who got treated badly by their employer. Some of them never recover. Most of them do recover. I hope that you will start to think about how you can recover. Not that it's going to turn on a dime, but that you're on a path building towards healing. And there we are as mediators trying to encourage healing. So my time is up. Thank you for being willing to come and think about this. And I hope that some of this will be useful to you as you are helping the people that you help. All right, Jeff, let me give it back to you.
Peter, that's awesome. Just awesome. Thank you so much. We've had people on the call from all corners of the world. I see friends from India on the call, and Natalie has told me we've had people from other continents here as well. Thank you so much, Peter.
Yeah.
We recorded this. We'll be posting this online. Please support the Union Rescue Mission Food Bank, urm.org. I posted that in the text, urm.org, or the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank, which is lafoodbank.org. That's lafoodbank.org. People have questions for Peter. Peter previously mentioned his easy-to-remember email, peter.robinson@pepperdine.edu. Please contribute to food banks if you can. Please let Natalie know if you're comfortable doing so that you have. Jean Lawler, thank you for making your debut as part of the Will Work for Food team. Natalie, as always, thank you so much for having organized this and having invited me to be a part of the team. It's great to raise money for food banks. Thanks to all of you for being here. Peter Robinson, thank you so much, my friend. And with
My
that,
pleasure. Thank you, guys.
you're welcome. And with that, we are complete.